Minecraft 1.21.9, the Copper Age, has finally been released. It seems that Mojang is dead set on making sure copper is seen as a valuable resource on the same tier as most of the other ores. While I still wouldn't quite say copper is among the best of the best, I mean, it doesn't even have a weighted pressure plate, I would say with both this drop and the Tricky Trials update, it's certainly in a satisfactory spot. Let's just say that they were not lying about this being the Copper Age, as nearly every single feature in this drop has to do with copper in some way, whether it be copper variations of existing blocks or even the resurrection of a mob vote loser. But with so many new features, some are bound to be worse than others, so today I thought it'd be fun to rank all the new additions in the Copper Age drop from the worst to the best. Now how exactly am I going to be ranking these? As always, I'll be judging these based on how much I like them for survival mode, so creative mode exclusive features aren't considered for the list. The more helpful I find an addition or change to be, the higher it'll place. On top of that, I'll be grouping similar items together within the same spot, which is especially relevant for this video as every copper item gets about 8 different variations. So sorry if you wanted to see how the exposed copper chain stacked up against the waxed oxidized copper golem statue, you'll just have to settle for the copper chains as a whole versus the copper golem statues as a whole. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. Starting off our list, we actually have 2 updates that I would consider nerfs. Nerfs aren't always a bad thing, but compared to every other addition in this video, they kinda have to take the bottom spots. 15, the copper trapdoor crafting recipe change. This poor item is now on its 3rd different crafting recipe, as Mojang seems to mess with it every single time they update copper. Initially, to craft this, it required 6 full copper blocks for just 2 trapdoors, or in other words, 54 copper ingots. Now this did have the advantage of allowing you to craft trapdoors in any state of oxidation, but it's safe to say that the new crafting recipe it got in 1.21 was much better. It now only required 6 ingots for 2 trapdoors, which was a huge money save. However, due to the addition of copper bars now taking that recipe, this had to be changed once again. Now you only need 4 copper ingots, which may seem like an improvement, but let's take a closer look. We're getting scammed. Yeah, so you only get 1 trapdoor now instead of 2, which means it costs 4 copper ingots per trapdoor rather than 3. Now, is this a huge issue? No, not really. It's barely even a problem at all. It's understandable why this change was made, but since it does just make things harder, I kinda have to keep it here on the list. 14, copper horse armor. Now we've got ourselves an actual new addition for the update, and it's one of the many copper variations on existing items. For this first one, the horse is getting some love, is what I would be saying. You may remember that I mentioned there being 2 sort of nerfs in this update, so how would this be a nerf? Well, it basically functions exactly the same as all the other horse armor where you can put it on your horse to protect them from damage. I honestly think it's pretty disappointing that this doesn't oxidize to make it at least a little special, but that's far from an exclusive issue with this item. The main problem keeping the horse armor so low is the fact that this is weaker than iron, gold, and diamond. To be fair, that is what I expected. It gives 4 armor points, whereas the other 3 give 5, 7, and 11 respectively. What makes this technically a nerf comes down to how you have to obtain this. Sadly, it's not craftable, even though I really think it should be. Instead, you get it the same way you get the other horse armor, through structure chests. Now please correct me if I'm understanding loot tables wrong, but I believe this being added just makes the other horse armor less common. Like if we take a look at the dungeons loot table as an example, every chest will give you 1 to 3 items in this category. If you add copper horse armor to the mix, that's just 1 more item that the other horse armor have to compete with. Essentially, it's now harder to find the better horse armor, so whenever you got copper, you could have got iron instead. Again, I may be misunderstanding how this works, but even if I am, this is just horse armor, so it was going to be down here on the list regardless. 13, the end flash. Okay, normally I don't cover purely auditory or visual features in these rankings, but I think this feature is kinda cool, so I wanted to talk about it. As the name implies, this feature is found in the end dimension. As you explore there, every so often, you may look up at the sky and think, and why he purple? Approximately every 30 seconds, a bright purple flash will appear in the sky, which will coat the landscape in purple light. This is such a cool effect, and I love getting different colored lighting here. I would definitely be on board with them doing more colored light stuff in the future. The flash itself won't appear if you're near the dragon, by the way, since she creates a fog that obscures it. You'll still be able to see the light changing, but the flash itself will be hidden. While this feature is really cool though, since it is purely visual, I can't really bring it up much higher on the list. 12, the copper nugget. Not a chicken nugget, don't make the mistake. This one is pretty simple, as it just works as an ingredient to craft a few of the new items we'll be seeing in a bit. Much like iron and gold nuggets, you can get 9 of these from a copper ingot, and if you want to get the ingot, you can do the reverse. That recipe is especially helpful because you can get copper nuggets from smelting copper armor and tools. That means you could get copper armor from mob drops and eventually get enough nuggets to make an actual copper ingot, which may help in game modes like Skyblock. Nobody cares about drown shut up. Now, I doubt most people would ever need to do that in survival worlds, but the option is nice to have, I guess. 11. Copper armor. It's been a little bit since our last fully new armor set, so it's cool to see copper get some love here. Unfortunately, it's really not something most people would need to make. A full copper armor set gives 10 defense points, which puts it as the second weakest armor set in the game. It's significantly better than leather at least, but iron still beats it out with 12 defense points. Copper is easier to get than iron, but honestly, I don't think it's that much easier. Like, in the time it takes to smelt all 24 copper needed for a full set, I think it's realistic that even newer players would be able to find most of the iron they need for an armor set as well. I won't say this is a bad addition though, since it's not really intruding on anything, it's just not something I ever foresee myself using. I really wish they would have made this cooler from at least an aesthetic perspective by having it oxidized. That way there could have been some reason to make it more interesting for experienced players. Or they could be funny and make you get struck by lightning. At least with copper nuggets, there is some use for this by smelting mob drops, but that's about as far as I can see myself going with this feature. 10. Copper tools. These are in a very similar boat to the armor, but I feel like they might be slightly more useful. In terms of what they can mine, they're on the same tier as stone tools, so it can mine copper, iron, and lapis ore, but not gold or diamonds, for example. It is, however, a smidge faster than stone, so I could see a world where I use copper tools in the early game when I don't want to waste durability on my iron pickaxe. That is a fairly niche situation, but it is something more than I can give the armor. Again, it also kinda would have been cool if these oxidized, but I'm not too upset about it in this case. 9. Lightning rod oxidation. Okay, now we're really starting to get into the features I can see myself and others using. A lot of this update was about adding new copper blocks, which will of course be very helpful while building. Based on how you build, I feel like this top 9 could drastically change order, so I'm going to do my best to explain why I personally put each of these in the order I did. Starting with the new lightning rods, I decided to put this one as the lowest simply because we already had the lightning rod before this. The copper age just allows the lightning rod to oxidize, which is of course very helpful as it gives us new colors to work with for this pretty unique shape. Just make sure if you are going to use this to wax them as well. Since lightning resets the oxidation level of copper blocks, I could see this getting quite annoying to work with. If you've got plenty of wax though, this is a really nice way to add some green detailing to builds. 8. The copper golem statue. I want to make sure to specify that I'm just talking about the statue here, the mob itself is going to be much higher on the list. To get the statue, you need to let the copper golem mob fully oxidize, so after you put it to work for an extended period of time, the copper golem will just freeze. Now, if you want to get the copper golem back, you can just use your axe to fully fix it. Or you could be cruel and evil and trap the soul forever in a pose of your choosing. By clicking on the golem statue and its place down, you can swap it between one of 4 different poses. This can be used as some very unique decoration, as we don't really have any other statue block like this. Depending on the pose as well, it can even give off a different comparator strength, so you can make some weird contraptions with this. The reason this is lower than some of the other copper stuff is just because I think this one is quite niche in its building application since it's so specific, but I still think the feature is really cool. 7. Copper torch. We now have a 4th torch color, and I think the green light is really cool looking. To get this, you simply craft a torch, but also throw on a copper nugget. I love getting some more variety for light colors in Minecraft. It's one of the aspects of the game that I think they could really work on. We have been getting some more unique colors with stuff like the frog lights, and I think this green torch is another great step in the right direction. I can see people using this a lot in spookier builds, just like they do with the soul torch, but the copper torch is also a lot brighter. So yes, while this is a pretty simple recolor all things considered, I think it's one that people will get a lot of use out of. 6. Copper bars. Of course we've had iron bars in the game for years, but surprisingly we haven't really gotten them in any other color. Copper bars are a big addition as it brings over 4 new colors, which gives builders far more options to work with than they had before. Bars are especially helpful in adding depth to builds since they're not a full block, so I think they'll go a great way in shaping builds in the future. Even if you don't use them as the full connected bars, just getting the small pillar forms in different colors could also be a huge help. The only reason they're not higher on the list for me is just because I personally don't use iron bars much while building, but I know this will be a big addition for a lot of people. 5. Copper chains. Pretty much exactly the same concept that we just had with the bars. Previously we only had iron chains, but now we got 4 more colors to work with. Personally, I use chains much more while building since I like the customization you get by being able to place them both vertically and sideways. Now I don't think I'll use the copper variants nearly as much since a black color just fits with more builds, but having all of these options will be extremely handy when the time comes. Once again, this just expands the copper building palette a ton by giving more uniquely shaped blocks. These 2 features also give me hope that we'll see bars and chains for other ores in the future as well. I'd personally love to see gold or quartz variants. 4. Copper lanterns. Once again, we have another green light source, but this time in a much nicer looking form. Torches are great, don't get me wrong, but I'm personally obsessed with lanterns. Ever since they were added in 1.14, just about every build I make has used them as their main lighting source. In addition to the color of light being different, since the shell is made out of copper, it can also oxidize. That means if you want, you can get a fully green lantern.
Say that again?
Now personally, I do prefer the black casing around the other two, but I like having these options, and I think this will work great in copper-centric builds. Of the new copper blocks purely for building this update, I think this is the one I foresee myself using the most. 3 copper chests. This is one of the most interesting new additions we've had in a while. For years, we have just had one type of chest texture. We've had other storage blocks come in different colors, but chests themselves have always just stayed as oak for the longest time. That's why I really appreciate the addition of the copper chests, because now we have more options to make our storage and our bases look a bit more interesting. Chests are an essential part of any base, and while they usually don't stick out as being out of place, I think copper chests could help certain builds feel a bit more cohesive and nice to look at. It is more expensive than a normal chest, but I think the building capabilities make up for that. This also gives me hope that maybe one day we'll finally see chests for the different wood types. I know that may seem kinda weird, but keep in mind, we went the longest time with just having oak variants for boats, doors, signs, etc., despite many of the other plank types being in the game. So if they are willing to give us copper variants, why not give us different wood colors later? And all of this is on top of the fact that the copper chest is essential in working with the brand new copper golem. So speaking of which, to the copper golem. He is of course the face of this update, and they absolutely did not disappoint with it. When it was initially revealed in its mob vote, it was said to work as a sort of randomizer by randomly hitting nearby copper buttons. Now that is kinda cool, but they went back to the drawing board when deciding to revive it, and I think they came back with a much better use. You could summon this guy by using a copper block and a pumpkin, which will automatically place a copper chest right beneath him. From this point on, he will now work as an automatic item sorter. Now obviously, we've already had item sorters in the past using redstone, but this not only makes it more accessible to players that don't like using redstone, it's also much easier and in many ways more effective. Essentially, the copper golem will check the contents of its copper chest every few seconds, and if it sees something inside, it'll take it out. It can take up to 16 of the same item at once, and will begin looking in nearby normal chests to see if they also contain that item. If it does, the copper golem will put that item inside the chest, and if it doesn't, it'll keep looking for a chest that either has the item or is completely empty. As far as I know, it's able to search up to 10 different chests, and can even reach chests that are a block above it. Now if my explanation seemed a bit complicated, don't worry, in practice it's super easy. In fact, Odyssey Central tutorial time. Say you have this attached to a spider farm and want it to sort between string and spider eyes. All you have to do is hook the farm up to a copper chest and then place some double chests nearby. Place string in one of the wood chests and spider eyes in the other, and boom, the item sorter is complete. Now whenever you kill a spider, the copper golem will place all of the items in the proper chest. I would also personally add a third empty chest just in case a spider decides to spawn with the skeleton. But yeah, this is extremely straightforward and easy to implement both in farms and in bases. I'm always horrible at chest management myself, so this guy is going to make things so much easier for me. On top of all that, the copper golem also allows you to sort non-stackable items as well. That's something that redstone filters struggled a lot with before, as it required some weird allay shenanigans, but here it's just as simple as placing that non-stackable item in a chest. Guess we don't need you anymore, torture chamber you go. I think it's safe to say that the copper golem is now one of the most useful mobs in Minecraft, on top of just having a great design. It's even got some more features like the copper golem statues I mentioned earlier, and iron golems can give them flowers to put on their head. And of course, if you don't want them to become statues, you can wax them as well. There's just so much to love about these guys, and I absolutely can't wait to see what incredible stuff people come up with in the future. All the contraptions I've already seen are great enough, and I think they'll just get better as time goes on. But despite all of that, I do think there is one feature in this drop that I slightly prefer. 1. Shelves. This feature came out of absolutely nowhere. It saw that this entire drop was copper related and decided to break in and outperform every other item. One of the most requested blocks in Minecraft's history has been vertical slabs, but time and time again, Mojang has denied this request despite how useful it would be for building. While that is still the case today, shelves get extremely close. It takes up a little less space than a vertical slab would, and you can place it on the side of blocks or even just floating by themselves. They come in all of the different wood colors, and immediately upon seeing these, the Minecraft community got to work. Since they add a perfect amount of depth, they work in so many different builds, like flower beds, the bottom of walls, pillars, and so much more. I don't think any other feature has gotten me this excited to build with since maybe Deep Slate back in 1.17. Due to the incredibly unique shape and large variety of colors, these are going to be some of the most useful building blocks in the entire game, and I haven't even touched on their main functionality. As the name states, they're shelves, so you can actually put 3 items on display here. Not only does that just look good as a shelf, this adds even more depth to their unique building capabilities. Frog lights not only make the shelf seem brighter, but also add to the shape. Nether stars can make anything on a pedestal feel even more important. Banners are fantastic since they maintain maintain their design, so you can actually turn the shelves into signs with bigger text. Look at Super Mario! There have been so many creative builds using the shelves already, and I think they're going to quickly become an essential tool for pretty much every builder. They can pack so much detail into a small amount of space that I think we're going to start seeing this set of blocks appear everywhere. Oh yeah, I'm still not done with their functionality, by the way. If you use redstone, you can not only remove the bars between slots, but this also lets you quickly swap hotbars with the items on display. Now honestly, I don't see myself using this that much, but it is an incredibly unique feature that just adds to how useful the shelves are. I can 100% understand preferring the copper golem, but I think it's undeniable that these are at least the top 2 features of the update. But for me, because of their massive variety and usage in builds, I think the shelf is my personal favorite new addition in the Copper Age drop. But anyway, that's it for this video. Do you think the Iron Golem giving the Copper Golem a rose should have been its own spot on the list and hate me for not doing that? Let me know in the comments. I think overall, this is probably my favorite game drop so far. It's the first one that I think will really impact how I play the main game. Most of the others were certainly pretty solid, but the shelves and Copper Golems are legitimate game changers. But before I go, I've got to thank my members being Lidhard von Hevering, Fred Bearsteiner, Schmendy, Maidzo2, Magnus and Larslot, Trifector, Tibby, Drybones Likes Fire Protection, Mario Master 101, Hippopotamus, Levi Strux, Nuclear, Cassie Channel, Blessed Tiger, Yanni the Duck, Wyatt Derpy, Trader Mo, Mevins 2001, Kid Trunks 15, Enchanted Skull, SMA, B Major 2003, Arson the Rat Boot, Sir Moosty, Belandor, Cinder CC, Jade Avery, Pronto Clone, Thicky Reiki, Ungenio TM, CW McCain, JubeTube, Tesseract, Jameson Pageson, Golden Sin 15, Z Frost, Stuffy Ant, Concanut to Keep, and Christian Flattery Sequel Edition. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.